Well, hello there, all. My name's Jack. Welcome to the Jack Did Gaming channel. And recently I have been getting really into the Overwatch lore. I've been diving deep back into a lot of the older cinematics recently. I've just been getting real excited by Overwatch lore. And well, today they released some Juno lore. It's called Signs of Life. It's a short story, and it's a block of text. But you know what? It's a block of text that I'm excited for, and I kind of want to share with you guys. And so today we're going to be reading this little Juno short story. People have often told me I have an incredibly good Juno impression, and that maybe I should be the understudy to voice act Juno. Now, I think this is a bit preposterous, but we're going to really see as we're reading this Juno short story today. So let's begin. The air in the halls of Watchpoint Gibraltar was stale. There was a familiar static to it that permeated the base and clung to Juno's skin. It provided a small amount of comfort, but it was still nothing like home. In the months since she arrived on Earth, Juno Min, did I pronounce that right? Who knows? Had found it beautiful but overwhelming. Of course, living on Mars had never been easy, even with her family there to support her. Project Red Promises terraforming initiative had caused horrific dust storms that threatened the colony's safety, and ultimately led to Juno's family to build the ship that brought her to Earth. Still, there had been peace in her former life, putting on the same suit and eating the same rations, coming home to the same quarters and sleeping under the same twin moons. Sorry, I'm drinking a little Dr. Pepper right now. Really got to me there. Ooh, the bubbles. Juno thought leaving Mars was hard enough, but braving Earth on her own proved harder still. Her mother had only asked one thing of her when she left: to live a long, happy life. But how could Juno be happy while her family was still in danger? She needed to save the colony, her home. If she couldn't, the thought set her mind adrift. As she made her way towards the command center, May's voice came from down the hall. Oh my gosh, I get to voice act. May's voice came from down the hall. Juno, is that you? Juno straightened up, lengthened her stride to give the appearance of confidence. Yes, I'm on my way. When Juno reached the door, May wasn't the only one waiting for her. Cassidy leaned against the railing at the top of the stairs with Farah, Echo hovering behind Winston's shoulders. Echo was hovering behind Winston's shoulder, pointing things out on a map in front of them, and Effie was sitting with Sojourn at a conference table, scrolling through a holopad filled with data. Ever since the null sector withdrawal, the base felt lighter, more lively. Overwatch had made it through, and now the world, could heal. At the sight of Juno, Winston perked up, adjusting his glasses before padding across the room to meet her.
Juno, how are you today?
Winston and Juno had spoken often about the trip over the past few days. He had been eager to help her prepare, and was not afraid to share his own experience with Lushing Interstellar. I think it's pronounced Lushing. On the whole, Winston had been supportive, always trying to keep the tone hopeful and encourage Juno to feel confident in the journey. But Juno knew enough about her Horizon lunar colony to understand that Winston's own history with Lushing was complicated. Even now, as he greeted her with a smile, she could tell he was putting on a positive front. I am excited, of course, but Juno's exchanged a quick glance with May. I'm also quite nervous. I do not know any of these people. What if they do not agree to help us?
Well, Liu Xing knows more about the Mars colony than anyone else on Earth except you.
Oh, that was May. I did my Winston voice for May. Well, we'll fix out. And you have informed they'll probably want to know too. This is a train wreck. I should never narrate an audiobook. This was objectively true. In their brief communications with Liu Xing Interstellar, the company had seemed just as supportive, citing their continued dedication to scientific research. After all, both sides stood to benefit a great deal from the exchange of information. Juno had questions regarding the communication failure that had seemingly stranded her family on Mars without resources. And Liu Xing's chairperson and CEO, Dr. Chow, was one of the few people on Earth who might have the answers that she sought. Perhaps it was that pressure that made this trip so intimidating. Winston nodded in agreement with May.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained. And we're all behind you, Juno, no matter what.
Juno looked between Winston and May, taking comfort in their confidence. Beyond them, Cassidy tipped his hat in her direction, and Sojourn offered a silent nod of approval. Even though she was nervous about the meeting, everyone here believed in her. What is this? Juno had questions regarding the communications failures that had seemingly... Okay, it's like just an important highlight thing.
You're right,
she said, and with a determined nod. I made it all the way to Earth. A trip to Lijiang is just another stop on my journey. Winston's smile broke into a wide grin.
That's the spirit! Echo, have you charted her flight path yet?
The room buzzed with activity as Winston and Echo returned to his desk, and the other agents shifted focus back to their own concerns. Juno watched over it all with her hands clasped together against her chest, dulling the pounding of her heart. May nudged Juno's shoulder and pulled her into a quick hug. With a squeeze, she whispered, "You're gonna do great, Juno." As they parted, there was an unspoken thank you in Juno's expression. Whether you're ready to go, just let us know. Whenever you're ready to go, just let us know. Though the moment was familiar, Juno knew it would be different this time. When she left the colony behind, her mother's voice had been her only guide, and the burden of hope had been Juno's alone. Now she had Overwatch by her side. She wasn't the only one carrying forward the mission to save her home. The gardens at Liusheng contained entirely new shades of green. Juno had grown up around warm colors. From the surface of Mars to every shade of Earth's sunset in the western holovids her father loved, but green was something special. Liusheng Interstellar had curated an abundance of plant life in their gardens. Ginkgos, pothos, and low-lying jasmine framed a view of the city and the tower, offsetting signs of Null Sector's attack with their natural beauty. Dr. Xing, the lead scientist on Project Red's Promise, had been there to greet them upon arrival. Juno had already observed Dr. Xing's warmth and was feeling more confident about the visit. "I hope you don't mind taking the science route," Xing said, with a wave at the surrounding flora. "The tower is under repair after Null Sector's attacks, so we'll be convening in one of the other offices on campus." "Oh, I don't mind at all," Juno replied. "The gardens here are so beautiful."
"They are indeed, all thanks to the advanced hyperonic and temperature control systems first developed on our lunar colony," Xing recited as if this was a tour she had given many times. Mei and Xing quickly struck up a conversation, discussing what had brought both them to
their respective fields and finding similarities in the nature of their research. Meanwhile, Juno was already drifting ahead, hovering higher than May and Xing as she moved to examine the papery blossoms on a nearby dove tree. She spun her heel, letting her hover boots take her above the canopy and away from the path. From this height, she could better see the state of the tower after Null Sector's attack. One of the windows had been blown out from the inside. I totally accidentally accused her of blowing out the window, leaving only jagged shards along the edge of the frame, and little black patches marked by bullet holes and explosive residue. Explosive residue marred the facade. Workers gathered on hovering platforms high off the ground, somewhere close to the 60th floor. Juno estimated and carefully lowered somewhere close to the 60th floor, Juno estimated, and carefully lowered twisted metal segments to the earth, where massive panels of Durovidro were being cut to size. Juno slowly floated down towards Mei and Xing, who were in the middle of a conversation when she rejoined them. But it's taking... Oh, fudge. My PDF reader is lagging. This is... Hello? You're embarrassing me, Adobe. But it's taking significantly longer than we planned. Most of our efforts have been put towards helping Li Jing recover from the invasion, Xing had explained. They're lucky that you have the support, Mei said with a smile. Not every company would put their community first. My accents for these characters are incredibly inconsistent. They're like changing every new word bubble, but we're moving on. In my experience, Li Jing isn't like other companies. Besides, the reconstruction efforts benefit all of us. We believe it is vital, not just to the main success of our work, but the health of our community to build and maintain secure environments that foster expansive thinking. There was something about the way Xing said this that left Juno slightly uneasy. The words sounded different than how Xing had spoken to Mei regarding her own study, almost rehearsed, as Xing herself seemed nervous, as if there was some truth that she was scared to say out loud. Before Juno could ask what was wrong, Xing had turned her attention to a card reader just outside the facility door. She ushered them inside, down the hall, and before long they had settled in a quiet conference room, with a panel of scientists opposite of Juno and Mei. Seated apart from the others, in a hover chair at the head of the table was Dr. Chow. Xing made a brief introduction, naming each of the scientists from the Red Promise team and their specialties, but it was Chow who spoke first.
Juno Teo Min,
Chaos said as she gestured to Juno to sit.
It is good to meet you.
It is good to meet you. The pleasure is mine, Dr. Chow, Juno replied with a bright smile. Mei shook hands with the last of the scientists while Juno surveyed the room and shifted in her seat. Impatient for a chance to ask questions, she formulated on the flight over. The meeting began with Juno providing a detailed account of her journey to Earth. It was strange to be under such intense scrutiny, but scientists were nice enough, and they all seemed impressed by the efficiency of her ship, given the limited resources available for its construction. When the conversation had moved to the state of the Mars colony, however, the panel's curiosity became sharper and focused. The question became more specific, as if Lu Xing already knew a great deal about the dust storms. I'm not sure how it compares to what they might be experiencing now, Juno said in response to a question concerning the magnitude of the last storm she had witnessed. But I brought back a collection of their latest readings, and May has been helping me interpret it. The panel had all turned their attention to May, who began to scroll through her findings on a data pad. Juno's right. It's not exactly like storm readings or predictions here on Earth, but I found the similarities are close enough that when running Juno's data through my existing simulations, I have been able to predict the rate at which storms are likely to occur today, as well as come scroll. As well as come up with some options of how Lushings could reduce their severity. Maid pulled up one of her charts on the largest holo display, and the room grew quiet. There were a few murmurs as scientists leaned closer to one another and began pointing things out on data pads, except for Xing. None of them looked beyond their own screens to acknowledge May's projections. The thought of having traveled all this way just to have May's work go unappreciated was frustrating, to say the least. Juno was on the verge of speaking up when Xing cut in. We appreciate your answer. You answering our questions, Juno. I understand this must be difficult to rehash. Juno shook her head. I would not say it is difficult exactly, Dr. Xing. Of course, I am frightened about the state of my home and my family, but I know I must not lose hope, and I'm grateful for you I am very grateful to have Lushing's support. Juno's optimism is one of her best traits, May interjected with a soft smile. Chow wore her own smile tight across her face, somehow entirely devoid of joy. Yes, that certainly seems to be the case, but admirable as it may be, you must understand that as an organization dedicated to science, Lushing must make practical decisions. That uneasiness crept back into Juno once again, but she stayed quiet. The last report we received on the dust storms painted a dire picture of the colony, Chow continued. We lost communication. When we lost communication, we could only assume the worst. And with the rising threats here on Earth, Lucian could not justify allocating resources toward a return to Mars. Juno's stomach dropped. There was a heavy pause between them before she said, You mean Lucian has not already been planning a rescue mission? There was an uncomfortable silence, punctuated by a reluctant cough from Xing. Unfortunately, no, she said, with a seemed to be genuine sympathy. With what seemed to be genuine sympathy, it would have been an imprudent use of company resources. Chow cut in quickly to clarify. It was a tragedy, Juno. Truly, but the storm scaled at an unexpected rate. All of our attempts to communicate with the base, both before and after your arrival, have failed. And at this stage, we've been unable to collect any further readings of our own. I'm afraid there's been no signs of life in the time since your return. No signs of life. A few of the scientists traded nervous glances. Dr. Shin leaned in to whisper something to Chow, but Chow lifted a hand in dismissal. Juno barely registered their exchange, focusing instead on that short phrase. No signs of life. Juno blurted out the question before she knew what she would say next. I'm a sign of life, Dr. Chow, and their research has not failed, but they need resources and expertise to stabilize the Martian atmosphere. May has that knowledge. Simulations to show you the possible ways to... Juno felt tears begin to well up in the corners of her eyes. She paused to take a breath and refocus. It took all her effort to hold back her emotions, and when she spoke again, the tightness in her throat was audible. At some point, she began to hover slightly above the surface of the chair. My family made a promise to Lushing, a promise we kept, to prove to the world that the life on Mars was possible. We did everything Lushing hoped for, and more. It has
been months since the colony lost contact, and you have already given up on us? It has been mere months since the colony has lost contact. May reached out to place a gentle hand on Juno's arm, guiding her back down to earth. After a moment, Chow sighed once again, and plastering an expression Juno couldn't help but distrust. I don't expect you to agree with our decision, Juno. If we'd known what you told us today, I believe we would have made a different choice. Chow swiped her palm across the arm of her previously docked hover chair, and it hummed to life. Your safe return home is nothing short of a miracle, Juno. But I'm afraid that Lucian cannot operate based on faith at this time. All our simulations calculate the odds of a successful rescue mission below 3%. If you are willing to share the data you brought back from the colony with Lucian, we can off. Dude, it's crazy how this PDF is lagging. We can, of course, support Dr. Zhao in her research. I imagine her expertise would be broadly applicable to the work we do. But we cannot, in good conscience, launch a rescue mission in the hope of defying such desperate odds. Juno said nothing as she watched the scientists gather their notes on the conversation, sorting a record of her life into various folders. Xing gestured for the rest of the team to go ahead and stood beside Dr. Chow with her hands crossed over a data pad. Eventually, when it was just the four of them left behind, Juno spoke up again. It was not a return, she said. Chow furrowed her brow. Sorry? I did not return to Earth, Juno said again, standing from her chair and puffing out her chest. I left my home behind. Juno caught May's expression from the corner of her eyes, some mix of sympathy and sorrow, but perhaps also a bit of pride. Of course, Chow said with an awkward clear of the throat. But if we are to work together in any capacity, I must ask that you refrain from revealing further details about Project Red Promise to the public. Your journey to Earth, gathering significant press coverage, which has complicated our ability to provide support for the mission. Though we appreciate your discretion in the time since Chow's sniffed. Project Red Promise was confidential for a reason. It would be detrimental to the progress we have made if the full extent of the project was revealed to the public now, before we have completed our analysis of all the available data. It shouldn't have been a surprise at this point that Dr. Chow wanted Juno to keep the colony a secret, but somehow Juno still found herself disappointed. If you're able to abide by these terms, we can commit to reviewing the atmospheric data you and Dr. Zhou have prepared. Consider my offer, Juno. Your parents worked hard to advance humanity's understanding of experimental colonization. I can only imagine what they would want you to help us. They would want you to help us do the same. Juno said nothing in reply. She kept her eyes fixed on the table, unwilling to acknowledge Dr. Chow's shallow interpretation of her family's motivations. Chow brushed past Xing and began to move towards the door, adding, "We'll keep in touch, Juno. Dr. Xing will now show you out." And then Chow was gone.
taking with her another chance for Juno to ask the rest of her questions. "This way," Xing said, abruptly breaking the silence. "You should at least see the museum before you go. It's just past the garden." Juno kept her hands clasped in maze after the three of them walked back, the way they had come. The gardens looked different in the evening. For the first time, Juno noticed a dull silver of machinery encroaching on the greenery. Some creatures had dug holes in the dirt by the pond and left a trail of muddy paw prints. A patch of knotweed had cracked the concrete of a maintenance pass, and the whirring of the hydroponic system drowned out the sounds of the night market. And a ray of solar lamps obscured the first stars above them. When they reached the museum, Xing handed them off to a guide, promising to meet them back at the gift shop. Juno would have been entranced by the tour just a few hours earlier, but now it held little interest. The vast collection of satellite imagery, the memorial portraits of animals from Project Star Companion, the blueprints of rockets, and the plans for the Horizon lunar colony, all blurred together. By the time they reached the gift shop, Juno wanted nothing more but to return to Gibraltar. They found Dr. Xing standing outside the gift shop, holding a large model rocket that she had just bought inside. She was eager to show Juno the details. The rocket had the Horizon Lunar Colony logo in the side that doubled as a button that would cause a hollow projected stars to appear. It was well crafted and a thoughtful gift. Xing even pointed out a maintenance panel on the underside that Juno could use to modify the toy and alter the projections. But that was all it was, a toy. Just another patronizing gesture from the Luxing that as they attempted to downplay the gravity of their decisions after the way Chao had treated Juno in the cold It was a cold comfort. "Thank you," Juno said as Xing handed her the rocket. Her family had taught her it was important, no matter how you felt about a gift, to always say thank you. "Of course, I thought, well, after things went today, you should have something to take back with you." Juno looked past Xing, the door suddenly desperate towards the door, suddenly desperate to leave Luxing and all its false promises behind her. "And I thought it might remind you of home." The words caught Juno's attention. It was the first time anyone had acknowledged she might miss her life on the colony. "I want you to know, Juno," Xing began in a low voice, hesitation shadowing her words, "that I'm sorry. Maybe it isn't worth anything now, but Luxing Interstellar canceled the Mars recovery project against my recommendation." Juno met Xing's gaze, then and saw her different. Juno met Xing's gaze, then and saw her differently. Not just as a scientist, but as someone else limited by Luxing's decisions. She had been part of the Project Red promise, after all. Perhaps she, too, was grieving the loss of the colony. "Thank you," Juno said again, and this time she meant it. May put her hand on Juno's shoulders, angling them both towards the exit. "Yes, thank you, Dr. Xing." After a reassuring nod, Juno added, "We won't give up." I'm gonna be honest, guys. I'm really missing. I'm missing doing my Winston voice. The Winston voice, this has been all female so far, which I don't know if you can tell. Not really my vocal range. Fudge. Xing walked with them to the threshold as if reluctant to let them out of her sight. The door was almost shut behind them when she stopped and ran into the street after them. "Dr. Zhao, wait," she said, grabbing May's shoulder. May turned, surprised, and looked between Juno and Xing. "Be careful, both of you," Xing warned, the words sounding desperate as they cut through her quickened breath. She cast a nervous glance back at the tower behind them and let go of May. "Luxing Interstellar isn't focused on the people as Dr. Chow might have told you
might have you believe, as Dr. Chow might have you believe, progress always comes first, and often at a cost. That night, Juno and May had some time left before the dropship was ready to return to Gibraltar. With the outcome of the meeting still weighing heavy on Juno, May had suggested they go for a stroll to explore Li Jing's night market. The pair walked for a long stretch, stopping in shops and collecting souvenirs to bring back to Gibraltar. But as much as Juno appreciated May's attempt to cheer her up, she couldn't keep Dr. Chow's callous observations, no signs of life, off her mind. As if sensing Juno's anxiety, perhaps noticing the hesitation in her steps, or the way her shoulders hunched as she shielded away from the crowds, May eventually guided them to a small restaurant on the outskirts of the market. The meal was a welcome reprieve. The warmth of the dumplings shared in such good company brought Juno a small measure of peace. Together, the two surveyed the market crowd as they ate, maintaining an easy silence. Eventually, when the plates were almost empty and the first of the market's stores began to close for the night, May spoke up. I'm very proud of you, Juno. Why? Juno asked, her confidence dulled after the events of the day. You did a very brave thing, speaking up for your family with Dr. Chow like that. Juno just shrugged and looked back at the last traces of the crowd outside, unconvinced. I mean, I don't know if I would have had the courage to do that if I were you in your shoes. Of course you would have, Juno insisted, but May only smiled and shook her head. After a lingering quiet, Juno glanced back at May. Auntie, when you made it back to Overwatch from Antarctica, did you ever feel lonely? Even when there were people all around you trying to help you find your place? All the time, replied May in her soft voice. I know it's scary. Thinking of all the things that could have happened since you left, and I know Lucian might not be as much of a help as we hoped, but we still know more than we did this morning. May kept a bright smile as she looked across the table at Juno. Even if Lucian isn't prepared to send a ship to Mars right now, that doesn't mean we won't find a way to save them. Or your home. I don't understand. Why do I have to convince them to help? May sighed. Sometimes people on Earth don't do what's right unless they know it benefits them. Juno just listened, shifting bok choy across her plate with the chopsticks. I see so much of your mother in you, May continued. You think I'm brave? But she was fearless, and she felt the same way you do. And even if it's difficult or dangerous, it's always important to do good. It was her belief that we could make a difference through our work that inspired me to join. That's what inspired me to join Overwatch in the first place. Juno wanted to take comfort in the words, but the way May spoke about her mother, as if she was already gone, just filled her with a different dread. I know that you and Overwatch are here for me, but Juno's eyes were shining when she looked up. I miss my family, Auntie May. And I will not give up on them, even if Lucian has. May reached her hand across the table. Outside, some of the lights lining the market pass had begun to dim. We won't stop trying to save him, Juno. I promise. The flight back to Gibraltar was long and bumpy. Juno spent the hours thinking through the events of the day. Chow's cold refusal and Xing's warning had cast a shadow on their visit, leaving Juno unsure of whom she could trust. Just as Juno was drifting off, the ship jolted. The locker
where she had stored her things banged open, spilling her bag and its contents onto the floor. Juno held onto the edge of her seat, shut her eyes, and oh my gosh, my desk is dropping. Fudge. I got too into it, and I hit the drop button on my desk. The ship jolted. The locker where she had stored her things banged open, spilling her bags and its contents onto the floor. Juno held onto the edge of her seat and shut her eyes, waiting for the turbulence to pass. Sorry about everything. Tracer's voice had come onto the intercom a few moments later. Just run into a rough patch. Should be smooth sailing for the rest of the ride. Dude, I do love doing my Tracer voice. Juno opened her eyes and unclenched her fists, exhaling in relief before unbuckling to clean up her things. The rocket Dr. Xing had given her had been flung to the far corner of the cabin. The hollow projection flickered, the stars shifting in and out of existence as the toy rattled against the metal floor. Juno picked up the rocket, turning it over in her hands and looking for signs of damage. It seemed mostly intact. She was surprised it was already malfunctioning. Ooh. Juno moved back to her bag, pulling a basic set of tools she always kept on hand, and carefully unscrewed the maintenance panel. The lid popped off immediately, and as if the screws were barely held on. Taped inside the panel was a data chip, and a carefully folded note. It had detailed instructions, quick modifications to rewire the rocket for audio output, and how to install the data chip. At the bottom of the page was a familiar sentiment scrawled in hasty characters. Will contact when I know more. Do not lose hope. -S. For the rest of the trip home, Juno was focused entirely on the rocket. She tucked it into her bag when they landed and went straight to her room, assuring that the other agents she'd be ready for a debrief in the morning. It was only hours later, when the sun was just about to rise over the bay, that Juno finished her work. Juno sat huddled on the floor between the rocket and the speaker, ready for whatever would play. After a few moments, a hollow projection changed to show a visual of the colony, and Juno heard her mother's voice play over the monitor speakers. My name is Jaya Deo. I am a scientist stationed at the Mars colony, codenamed Project Red Promise. If anyone can hear me, please respond. We are requesting immediate resupply and support from Lushing Interstellar. Hearing her mother's voice again was almost enough to bring her to tears, but Juno had heard the message before. It was the same one the colony had been broadcasting months ago when she left Earth. She sighed, disappointed, and was about to turn off the recording when she heard something. Juno, if you're hearing this, we are all right. Gasp. There was a pause in the transmission, and her father's voice echoed in the background, his words unintelligible before Jaya continued. We want you to know that we're all so proud of you, Juno. No matter what happens, wherever you go, there will be people who love you. And even if we aren't together, as long as you have memories of us, you will always be carrying a piece of home. Her mother's tone turned serious then, steadied by the determination Juno heard when they said goodbye to whoever is hearing this transmission. You may have given up on us, but please, don't give up on her. Juno held her breath, as if waiting for her mother to face to appear, but the projection flickered out and the transmission faded into static. In the quiet of her room, with the rocket held closely to her chest, Juno played back the recording again and again, listening for hope in her mother's voice. Oh, and then we get this cute little artwork. Oh my gosh. Oh my god, guys, it's fun. It's fun. No evil company. It's all happy. Oh my gosh. I don't know. This was really cute. I really enjoyed this. I'm just been really stoked about Overwatch lore recently, and I don't know. This was just a good read. It was 18 pages. It was like around like 17, 18 pages. I kind of overstated it when I said it was 18, and it says it's 18 pages, but it's not actually 18 pages because there's like the title pages and the end pages. So maybe probably around 15 pages, the page count just keeps lowering. It's actually 5 pages. No, I really enjoyed this. And I enjoyed reading it with you. I hope you had fun reading it with me. I know I stumbled over my words a bit. I know my accents weren't great, my little character impressions. But, I had fun reading it with you. And if you want me to do something like this again with future lore, let me know down in the comments down below. Yeah, and with that, my name is Jack. This has been the Jack Did Gaming Channel. And I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.